Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's St. Paddy's Day to everyone, so happy St. Paddy's Day there. It is Friday with 8 games on the slate as well. In this one, we're taking a look at the Fighting Irish, if you will, the Boston Celtics. They are in Portland taking on those Trailblazers. Take a look at this one for you guys. Also have another game video up and those player props, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and follow along with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com. We have all of our great written NBA content and more up there right now. We also have that odds finder tool you can use. You can make sure you're getting the best odds available to you from all those books giving us bets this season. Nate, let's go through this little 8-game slate here on Friday and then talk about our game, Blazers and C's.
Yeah, Joel Embiid is looking to lead the Sixers here. -10 at Charlotte. His prop is at 35 points. Charlotte can't guard centers. The Warriors can't win on the road, are +4 at Atlanta. Draymond is out, I believe, ruled out. Looks like Steph's going to play, though. And the total...
Draymond had 16 technicals.
Yes. Suspended is out. 248 total in that game. Ridiculous. +5.5 are the Wizards at Cleveland. Memphis -9 at the Spurs. The Pels -5 at the Don't Sleep on the Rockets. The Wolves +2.5 at the Bulls. Interesting defensive matchup there. And then we're going to break down the last 2 games on this slate. We got Mavs +6 at Lakers. Total's been bet up a little bit to 227. And then we got our Celtics -4.5 or 5 at Portland. 230 total. I mean, Portland's one of the worst teams in the league. Full stop. Like it's we've been talking about this for a while, and they've one of the few teams that haven't let us down in terms of being bad when we expect them to be bad. Yeah. It looked like they were actually going to get the Knicks without Brunson in their last home game, and the Knicks just crawled their way back, dominating the glass. And Portland shot 38%. I mean, they hit 17 threes, but they shot 38% inside the arc. So that's definitely troubling. They're leaning heavily on free throws right now because other teams, again, since Dame's 70-point explosion, have really run him off the line, even more so than before, forced him to get into the lane. He's getting the line a good only 9 times per game during that span. That's not really going to get it done when there's no other offense around you. But he is turning it over a lot. His last 3, about 4 turnovers, -18. He only got off 16 field goal attempts when they lost in Boston, and that's kind of been their MO. I mean, they're holding him to 27 points a game, letting him get his assists, 12 assists, but also 5 turnovers his last 4 against the Celtics. So they're very capable with their personnel, with Derek White, in addition to Smart and Brogdon, to chase him off the line, force him to be a decision maker in the lane. And if you beat us that way, we'll shake your hand, but we're not going to let you just rain fire from deep, which is what most teams have done, which is why Portland has not been able to win despite Dame, still averaging 36 a game. They've lost 3 of their last 4 at home. It took a 71-point performance for them to win at home. All 3 losses now double digits, losing by an average of 9 points per game, even with the win. That's the margin. Second worst defensive rating at home on the season. Out rebounded again in that span. Nurkic not really back all the way. And so if they're a high free throw rate team, I think Boston is a team that will limit that. I mean, they're 3rd in opponents' free throw rate on the road. They were number 1 for a while. Struggling lately, as they are in general. But by the way, Washington, number 4 in limiting those free throws, beat Portland by 25 at home. The Knicks, number 8, limiting free throws, beat Portland by 16 without their best player. So Boston, it's a get-right spot. They might sit Tatum. Let's be real about that. It's the front end of a back-to-back. They go to Utah tomorrow. Then they got Sac on Tuesday. But even without Tatum and without Robert Williams, which does make you lean over, I think the offense will be flowing. I mean, it's a team that leans on threes. They have gone over in 3 of 5 without Tatum. Those numbers are completely skewed because the last 2 were OT losses without several starters, not just Tatum. But, I mean, this is a team that the numbers are pretty clear, right? If they hit 17 threes, they're basically undefeated on the year. If they fail to hit 16, they're just above 500. Well, good thing they're facing the worst 3-point defense at home in the league. And Portland's been even worse lately in their last 3, giving up 43% from deep. So I think we're looking at a get right spot, similar to when they went to Atlanta to start this road trip, scored 134 before getting in that Houston trap game and then grinding out a win in Mini. This is definitely seems like it'd be a higher scoring game that Portland could actually keep pace with a little bit more. I actually lean Celtics more than the total because I just don't think Portland has many options offensively. If Jeremy Grant sits, he's questionable. I would be really worried about the Portland offense because it's just Dame, and then whether Simons can give you like 6 or 7 threes off Dame kickouts, and there's just no other source of offense.
Yeah, I mean, Simons can get hot. We've seen him do that for sure. He can hit 6 or 7 threes. But I think the interesting thing about this game is this game, the Detroit-Denver game, you've got Philly. Like, can we just have 70 games in the season or 72? Do we really need all these games down the stretch that nobody cares about? Because that's what's going on with Boston, in my opinion, and that's what's going on with Denver and all these teams in first. Even Milwaukee just got beat by the Pacers last night as we're recording this on Friday morning. So just whatever. Do we really need all these games? I understand RSNs and all that stuff, not for right now, but that's what's going on with Boston. And that's my main point here is the only thing, in my opinion, that is going on with Boston is that they're playing Houston, Minnesota, and Portland, and then they're going to Utah, or they're in a row at the end here, and that's what's wrong with them is they don't give a crap. And I'm not saying they gave up on the 1 seed necessarily. I would care about the 1 seed. I mean, they just played the Bucks, in the second round last year and needed Game 7 at home to win that one, which worked out well for them. So I would assume they would want that same level of advantage in this year's playoffs if they're going to be a 2 seed playing in the conference finals this year against the Bucks. So this is just as important of a game. So is Utah. So is all of these at this point because you have to finish down the stretch, and I think they will. I think they'll continue to play pretty decent defense, but if Jeremy Grant is in this game, I do like an over. I do think that if they can at least have another weapon, aside, next to their 2 guards in the backcourt, that they should be able to get this game over 230. And the reason I think that is obviously starting with home road splits. Portland just as guilty as any team in the league this year, scoring 9 more points at home than they are on the road. Coming off of a road trip, where they played 4 of their last 5 on the road, and they've scored 107 points in those games, including the Knicks game that they just scored 107 points. Knicks playing a little bit better defense than the Celtics of late because the Celtics have been playing pretty well, but the Knicks have still been a better defensive team all year. So I still think there's opportunity for points. Obviously, we know what it comes down to. It's a Dame Lillard squad, so it's threes and free throws. That's how they're getting their points. 12 threes, even though on the road versus the 14 they're making at home. Once again, more threes there. That's why they're 21-12 to the over at home this season versus a much worse on the road in terms of going over. So the defense is just awful. It's been awful all season. It's been worse since they traded their best defensive player in Josh Hart in their last 8 at home without him. 123 dead last, 123 defensive rating, giving up the 4th most defensive rebounds with the worst, defensive rebound percentage. You can get fast break points, you can get turnovers, you can get threes, they're allowing the 26th most threes over those 8 games. The 4th most, at 41%. To their opponents. They're only playing at a 99 pace at home, and yet still those games are averaging them scoring 119 and their opponents scoring 123 and a half or so. So partly why Dame scoring 5 more at home this year than he is on the road. You've got Nurk scoring 4 more at home, and a few other guys like Jeremy Grant's pretty much the same, slight uptick at home. But you're basically getting 9 to 11 more points from like your 3 to 4 best options at home than you are on the road. So it's not a surprise that you're scoring 9 more points at home than you are on the road, right? And I think for Boston, I don't know that it really matters. Like even in their last 5, which a bunch of those on the road, they have been good at defense, but they have been good in terms of like transition points. They've been actually much better around the rim and not fouling. And still, I'm sorry, they have not been as good around the rim and have been fouling, which is why I know that they were good on the road as in terms of not allowing free throws to their opponents. But if you look at their last 5 on the road, they are allowing the 5th most free throw attempts to their opponents. So I just think there's an opportunity for points, really, and I do think they can win. But I'm not scared of having to pick a winner or even a spread in these games down the stretch. Like I'm not touching a 12.5, 14-point spread, whatever, for Denver and Detroit. The same way that I don't even really want to touch like 4.5, 5 on this one. Although this one scares me way less, and I would be much more likely to take it. But I still just feel really good about the over at about 229.5.
Yeah, I mean, and the Celtics, you said playing much worse defense than the Knicks right now. I mean, they were giving up 61 paint points in these last 3 on the road. So way worse in terms of that margin, where the Knicks are still one of the best in the league. So I don't think Portland's only scoring 107, to your point. I think that is why you feel a little bit more confident. I do think the Celtics offense will keep rolling without Tatum. We just have a very small sample size of 5 games, 2 ugly games against Orlando and Toronto. But without the full complement, the other 2 were back-to-back recently, so there were a lot of guys out. I think you will see Brogdon and Derek White really push the advantage on the defensive end for Portland. I mean, Dame being tired, not being a great defender anyway, and Simon's also not a great defender. I think those guys are both probably going over their props here. I would rather look at them than Jaylen Brown if we do get props, if Tatum is ruled out, once we get that settled. And without Rob Williams, the struggles defending the paint might continue. As we say, watch out for Mike Muscala on a poster. But I do trust the Celtics to win this one. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for them to get this one than in Utah next time out. And they are very good in these back-to-back situations, more so on the back end. I think they're, aside from when they've benched their starters, they're undefeated up to that point. So I'm not really worried about the short rest. I do think they got some things right there, beating Minnesota, and that they'll pull out another win.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask you about is the role players here, because if Tatum is out, it's fine, but is Marcus Smart still going to be Marcus Smart the way that he is right now? Like he just has not looked right like himself. He just looks older all of a sudden, to be honest. But Grant Williams in their last 10 games, about 4 points a game, right? Like another really important role player. Like these guys need to step up. So this is an opportunity. I mean, even Derek White at 13 a game, Malcolm Brogdon the same over their last 8 to 10 games, Nah, it's close. I think they need one of those guys to get closer to 17, 18 points if it's not Brogdon.
Here's another thing you see. If it's a back-to-back, Al Horford might play one night, sit the next if Tatum does the opposite, and then you could suddenly get a Spike Horford game where he turns back the clock. Maybe that's what we get tonight. Yeah,
no, that's fine and great. That's actually a solid insight into this, because that's what I'm saying is necessary for Portland for Boston to be able to, I think, get those points that we want them to get and really put the hurting down on them on offense, especially, and start raining threes. So if that's going to happen, they do need those other wing players and role players to be efficient as well. So we'll see if they can do that and step that up a little bit, especially if Tatum is questionable tonight.
And then the Mavs are +6 at Lakers. Total was 224 a little bit ago. It is now 227, as the expectation is starting to rise that maybe Kyrie and Luka are going to return tonight. The latest injury report still has Luka listed out, Kyrie questionable, but apparently both practiced on Thursday. And Jason Kidd is being a little coy in terms of their status here tonight. Certainly that's going to affect the total more than anything. I mean, it's also going to affect the spread, though. I mean, I think Josh would be all over +6 for Dallas if they've got both their guys here. Because you see it a lot, right? I mean, the young guys then get a ton of confidence being the 1A, 1B option. I'm talking about Jaden Hardy and Josh Green specifically. And then they get to settle into supporting roles if those guys are back. And all the stats you see about Dallas not being able to close or win games in the early part of the Kyrie era, they might start to shift a little bit because you've got a supporting cast now. And Josh Green playing very well, playing very efficiently. Jaden Hardy has been playing very inefficiently, but stepping into that scoring role without Kyrie. And there's a correlation when these teams get together that if the Mavs win, it is actually a higher scoring game, which is against their MO in the pre-Kyrie era here. But the last 3 wins over the Lakers have averaged 237. AD missed all of those. And then he came back a few weeks ago, and the Lakers won a low-scoring game, 111-108. AD had 30 and 15, was +16 in his minutes there. So I do think there is still a correlation if you want to take Lakers plus under. You might even want to tease it just to be safe here, to get them at -2 and 231 under, just in case, we get either of those star cards back, and then all of a sudden we're talking a lot more offense. But Dallas was starting to shift before the injuries here. I mean, I guess it's probably because Luka was limping through some of these games, but their defense was no longer a joke. I mean, they were limited. They had a 104 defensive rating against Utah. And that game did manage to go over down the stretch, or actually 236, I think was a push basically. but it was played at a 110 pace. And since then, their pace has really dipped back down to where it was pre-Kyrie levels. Easy for me to say.
Yeah.
And the Lakers are when they're at home, they're going to exert their will. They've gone under in 7 of their last 8 at home. Now they've been going under consistently before LeBron got hurt, and without him, they are much more dependent on defense. We're talking allowing just 108 points per game in those 8 home games, pace slightly below 100, and holding opponents to the 5th lowest 3-point percentage, but allowing the 4th most attempts. Do with that what you will. I don't know if that's a lot of missed open looks, but it's probably a lot of rangy defenders closing out right now that you've got Jared Vanderbilt, Beasley, right, and Wenyen Gabriel getting more consistent minutes. It's just a lot harder to torch the nets on these Lakers than when you had Russell Westbrook running around like a chicken with his head off in the early part of their season. Their defense far less of a joke. And the free throw discrepancy is going to be key, as always, for the Lakers and for AD. But it's not just the AD show recently. They are getting the 9th highest assist rate since the All-Star break here. They are crazy. I mean, they're not on 2 days rest, but AD is. And you look at them, they're 8-4 against the spread and 8-4 to the under when they get 2 to 3 days rest. So with their main guy going on a little extra rest, there is that strong correlation again. And they've gone under in 4 straight when they're actually favored without LeBron James, which is, a consistent trend since mid-February when he had to sit. So, I mean, you got to worry about the Mavs offense, certainly, if they don't have either of those guys. They just lit up the Spurs, but, I mean, what does that really mean in overtime? But Memphis shut them down. I mean, again, holding Hardy to like 38% field goal shooting as the number 1 option is probably not going to get it done at LA.
Yeah. Hardy, man. Yeah, no, you're right. Love that dude. But it's all about if they play. I just hit it and was in the Lions Discord chat as well, just being like, do with this what you will, but like 5.5 if both those guys played in practice yesterday, are tied with the Lakers in the percentage, win percentage column for a play-in spot right now. And J Kidd refused to say that they're not playing. Like, I don't know, at least one of them's got to play, man. Like, and if that's the case, I don't know that it makes that big of a difference. I think you still get more offense with at least one of them. That's obvious. Not to mention neither of them being world beaters on defense. But if they don't, then even these games that they've played without either of them in the last 3, like those Memphis games, obviously no Ja. And then no Kairuka. So obviously those were super low scoring. And then that San Antonio game was like, whatever, they were down and about to lose that game for the entirety of it. And then forced it to overtime and it came back and won. Christian Wood hit a bunch of threes, which was crucial for them. And will have to be tonight. But I don't, it's just 2 different bets. If Kairuka's in, it's an over. And I mean, I would not necessarily like them to win. I would be very interested to see if they get ruled in, how that affects this spread. Like, does it go all the way down to a pick'em, or do they get favored by like 3 or 4 points? Like, probably should be if they're both in, because I know they suck at defense, but like, come on, man. You've got, I don't know. At that point, it's AD versus those two. I know it's on the road, but that doesn't necessarily mean much. I think it does go a bit under.
Don't you disparage this Lakers supporting cast. Okay? I just said it's not the AD show anymore.
You did say that, but when it comes to getting enough offense and the ability to stop those two while being able to outscore them at that point, needing like probably 118-ish points to beat them, I don't know. I don't necessarily like that quite as much for you, but for them. But right now it's at 220, like 226, right? 226.5 is mostly what you're finding for this total, and that's probably too high if neither of those guys play. Like that just is, and that, you look at how the Lakers are winning in since LeBron went down, essentially, right, over the course of their last like 12 games, where they're not that bad. I know they've lost 2 of 3, and that Houston loss was puzzling because why the hell was Anthony Davis sitting? But he was sitting because they want to win this game, and so that's why we would be fools to leave him off of our player props tonight on those 2 days rest against a team like the Mavs, who are just not going to they're just not it down low, right? We know that. So I agree with you that their defense looked a little bit better right around the time that Luka was going down with that that injury that they lost. I believe it was a loss to who did he leave against? Nola, that he lost against, right? He ended up having like 8 assists in the first half, but then he really was just hobbled, had to come out, and obviously he's missed some games since then. But even in that Nola game, as soon as he came out, it's not like we were necessarily headed for an over in that game, but it just slowed down even more in terms of the offensive efficiency once Luka stepped off the floor. And now you're looking at a couple games that are all, outside of San Antonio, which I just throw away every San Antonio game essentially that you see. Once you get to that point against them, whatever. But before that, the pace that they play at, especially, it's back to that Dallas pace when Kyrie's not on the team, which is a huge factor for this. So if Kyrie plays alone without Luka, still scared of an under a little bit more. But without both of them, I do agree with you that the Lakers should win this game. And even without both of them, 6 points doesn't really scare me because of how much AD should dominate.
Yeah, we're just talking major correlation based on whether they play or not. The one thing I will say about that Spurs game, though, is Dallas gave up 16 offensive rebounds. And this is a Spurs team that is, over the last 3 years, the worst offensive rebounding team in the NBA. So, and now you go up against AD and company, a fresh AD, like you said, 2 days rest. I do think the Lakers offense, you say it's been kind of stagnant, it's been AD dependent. Well, they got D'Angelo Russell back in that Toronto game and scored 122, and then they did that again against Nola with both those guys out. Those are two, really respectable defenses, and Dallas is not. They're, bottom 5 in sort of most of the numbers that you would need to see for the Lakers to score, including second chance points allowed. So I do think that we could see, because AD got that rest, because they looked ahead, looked past Houston and fell into that trap exactly like the Celtics did, that we see a much closer effort offensively to what we saw in those other games, and that the Lakers do their part, scoring 120-ish, which certainly makes a 227 total pretty low, even if you are dealing with missing one or both of Kairuka.
Maybe we go with a little Rockets victims parlay tonight with those Lakers and Celtics, who most recently are the two most recent teams to lose to those Rockets. Yeah. Like I said in the other video about Boston, can we just maybe make the season 72 games so we don't have to watch the Rockets beat up on a couple of teams at the end of the season? Either way, yeah, I think, like we said, just stay on thelines.com, stay all over these injury reports, make sure you know who's playing tonight, because if one or both of them plays in terms of the Kyrie Luka experience here in Dallas, then you've got to sort of change the way that you bet on this. I personally, like I put in the Discord, hit +6 because of, I'm just going to bank on them, having those guys in there, or at least one of them, to be able to keep this closer than that, even though it is in LA tonight. So Nate, let's go ahead and jump right into your first NBA player prop to end our work week tonight.
The Warriors and Hawks have a 248-point total in Atlanta tonight, and both Trey and Steph are around 30 points in terms of their prop. I wouldn't be surprised if both go over, but I'm actually going with the big man, Clint Capella, just to get a double-double, +115 at DraftKings, maybe a little less at other books, but I think that's a good shot here. He's double-doubled in 3 of his last 4 at home, and the real concern in this matchup is, will he be played off the floor? And the Warriors, with Draymond Green suspended and Wiggins out, I don't think they're that same kind of team that can play a center off the floor so easily with the Draymond at the 5 lineup. Kevin Looney is probable, so he should be in there, more traditional center, and Kuminga's going to start probably in place of Draymond. So we're looking at more of a traditional big lineup, and that's what Capella's gotten more minutes at when he's played those kind of big lineups. He's actually still managed to average 21.5 and 15.5 in his last 2 against the Warriors, and that includes one where they yanked Looney or Wiseman early and used Draymond at the 5 for most of that game. He actually had 24 and 18 in that game. So Warriors, as we know, horrendous defensively on the road. They're on the front end of a back-to-back and go to Memphis tomorrow. So how much effort is there going to be down low, containing him on the boards? Maybe you just want boards here if you are scared about the lobs and the dunks, but I don't think Golden State's stopping anyone right now. Like I said, double-double in 3 of his last 4 at home, 11.5 points and boards there. And the Warriors are giving up the 4th most points to centers in their last 7 here, along with the 9th most rebounds over a larger sample, the last 15.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, too, because a lot of people are trying to figure out what's wrong with the Dubs, why it is that they're literally the Detroit Pistons on the road and the defending champs at home. It's wild. some people are annoying. They're just like, oh, the other team is shooting better. It's like, that's not, you can't do that over 40 games. It's not luck that. It's not like that. And the better explanation is other teams are shooting well from deep because they have to pack it in because they don't have the down low presences to get rebounds, especially against a guy like Clint Capella. Take away Draymond, they're going to be even worse tonight. There's going to be more opportunities for second chance points, offensive rebounds galore. So I think Capella's a great play, especially on the rebounds tonight. And he should be able to get some putbacks. And Trey should be able to find him, dunking over guys that can't jump. Like Kevon Looney can't jump over a piece of plywood. I love him, but he can't. Draymond could barely do the same thing, but at least he's one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. But way better shot at defending Capella, and still don't really love his chances. So yeah, I think it's you definitely target him tonight against these Dubs in an absurd total of 248. So I'm going Ant Edwards in a total that I don't think is going to go so high, but I still like Ant Edwards. It's one of those situations where they're playing the Bulls. The Bulls have been very good on defense. The total in this game is only 225, but we just saw this team score 104 points against, or not even fail to score 100 points against Philly. Dude still had 32 against the Dubs the other night. Another really poor showing on offense, but still had 28. So, I like his abilities tonight in his last five. I'm sorry, I should be clear. 27.5 points I would take. I also would like the 5.5 rebounds if Rudy Gobert is not playing, who is questionable tonight. And I think that's a big part of it. But starting with the points, in his last 30 a game, 7 boards and 6 assists. That's all in about 38 minutes, 49% from the field and 38 from deep, and then a 34% usage, which is what I'm really focused on here. In his last 5, it's been that way. Rudy's missed a couple games as well in that time. Naz Reid is also questionable. Austin Rivers is also questionable. I'm not really sure who's supposed to score tonight for them other than Ant. So I like that. Caruso is also questionable. I should throw that out there. That's just as important for us. But there's not going to be any head of the snake, if you will, to that defense for Chicago without him. And Chicago, as good as they've been, they're stopping a lot more big men than they are guards, right? Allowing the 5th most points per game to shooting guards. But when I say shooting guards, I really just mean who is the most ball dominant guard on the other team that's dribbling the most with the ball in their hands and then putting up shots. And with that 34% usage, it's coming from him. And then I'll just touch on the rebounds for a minute because he has been averaging better than 7 boards in the last 5. Like I mentioned, Rudy missed a few of those games. And without Rudy, he goes from 5.5 boards on the season to 7.5. That he's pulling down when Rudy's not around. So I think for him to get 6 tonight is a pretty good bet in a game. He could get 6 or 7 or 8. I know the Bulls are good at rebounding, but this is a guard rebounding, not quite the center position that they've been limiting the Bulls.
Well, I actually like a guard on the other side here. Patrick Beverley, his revenge. I mean, he had a couple shots when he was with the Lakers to get some on the Wolves, who discarded him for Gobert. After all he did for this franchise, all he did winning the play-in game and then standing up on the scorer's table, like, I brought you a playoff appearance. But he's only at 5.5 rebounds or 8.5 rebounds assists. And if Caruso, I think he's closer to like doubtful at this point. Without Caruso, I think he has a clear path to minutes, and he's a good peripheral stats guy in what should be a pretty ugly game. I think both Ant and Zach LaVine are in play here in terms of just being the guys that chuck for their teams and getting over even if this game goes under. But there's not a lot to like about a shootout potential here. No. And Rudy has been questionable for like 20 straight games, so I'm not going to read into that in terms of him missing this one. But Ant, yeah, I mean, he's seen that 34% usage rate, no problem taking the points there. I'm looking at the Pelicans here. Trey Murphy, who does not have a huge usage rate, but has been very efficient with his touches. 21 points per game in his last 6 in 37 minutes as he's been, stepping up without Zion, obviously showing no signs of coming back. Brandon Ingram missed a few of those games, and so the usage won't be huge here. But, I mean, we're talking about Houston, which has popped up and beat some teams, but is still awful defense, particularly on the wing, giving up the second most points to shooting guards and most threes to shooting guards in their last 30, second most threes to small forwards too, whatever position you want to put them at. And that's key here. I mean, he's shooting 49% from 3 in his last 6. He has huge minus odds to hit at least 3 threes. I'd rather just take 16 points for Murphy, which is something he's hit pretty consistently, in 7 straight road games in January. He hit at least 15 points. And then he's gotten 32 in his last 2 here against Golden State and Sac and Golden State, a great defense at home. The first opportunity to play Houston with this real starter's workload, I guess that came in January. He played 29 minutes, had 14 points, but point is, yeah, the threes, if those are going to be there for him, or if Houston's going to scramble to close out, he is that classic guy who will just attack the closeout, get to the rim, and there's not a ton of rim protection for Houston. Certainly like it if Sengun plays in that case. So 15.5 points or 3.5 rebounds against a Houston team that is pretty bad offensively, of course, too. If you combine the two, the odds are worse, but I like either of those overs at just minus 105.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that scares you about Trey Murphy is BI playing, right? And even if he is playing tonight, I mean, I just kind of attack this prop with Austin Reeves a couple nights ago against this Rockets team, where I was like, there's going to be some points. This is where they give up points. The other thing, though, was that AD was not playing in that game, and that was another reason that I attacked Austin Reeves in that one. If you look at Trey Murphy with and without Brandon Ingram, obviously it's going to be a lot different, right? 5 more points when Ingram does not play. So I'm personally just heed a bit of caution in the sense of Trey Murphy's a little bit streakier as a young guy, obviously, but he's capable of this number, and the Rockets are not anything on defense. So if you think the points are going to be coming in this game, they're also going to be coming from the guard position more so, I would say, than the big guys in this one. But let me finish off here with AD. My second pick after I took AE and Ant Edwards on the other one. 27.5 points for Anthony Davis tonight. I think that's where we really focus against this Dallas team that, they actually haven't been as bad against centers necessarily, but all they're weak down low. We know that they've been in the bottom 10 in terms of allowing points in the paint all season. And AD, with those points, the last time he played Dallas, which was just like 3 weeks ago, without LeBron again, 30 points, 15 boards in that one, and a plus 16 in those minutes. And that was that win that they got over Dallas on the 26th of February. So he's doing well against the West. I looked at his stats in the last 7. He's played 2 Eastern Conference teams there, did not have a good game against Toronto, who he does not play well against, and did not have a good game against the Knicks, who are just stacked down low, and ended up winning that game on a random Sunday. But the other 5 against Western Conference teams who are also not good down low, including Dallas as a part of one of those 5 on the 26th of February, like I said, 34 points a game, 14 boards. The boards scare you because the Lakers are playing a little bit slower. It's still like top 10 fastest pace, but a little bit slower. And they're playing a Dallas team that, especially if they don't have Kyrie and or Luka, are going to be playing not only slower without Kyrie, but just worse on offense in general, which will just make it a little bit choppier and weirder. Maybe there's an opportunity for some more rebounds, but I just don't like the amount of possessions that are likely to occur in this game to get us to 14 boards for him, whereas him to be the focal point of the offense, getting points down low where the Mavs are super weak, I think is another good opportunity for him to get 30 plus tonight like he did last time against them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he sat out against Houston for this express purpose. 2 days rest. This is the spot to take AD. Is just like he's the guy the Lakers are going to deploy when they're like they break glass. I mean, obviously they're leaning on him completely, but they're looking at the schedule, which is very, very easy for them the rest of the way, by the way, and saying these are the games we need. And there's definitely an internal discussion that like, when we need a game, we need AD to score 30 points right now. Yep. So I think, even an alternate line at 30 plus and a win for the Lakers. You worried about this game going under if Dallas doesn't have their guys. And I think, AD could still have 30 in a 110 game, which is exactly what he did last time out against Dallas. So definitely take this at minus 105.
Yeah, Ant and AD are both 2 guys that that's it. They're the offense right now. So, I mean, look, Malik Beasley, if he gets hot, total respect. Rui's good for a knockdown every now and again, but it's not like they're going to be coming they're not going through any of those guys too consistently, nearly as much as AD with that usage. So I think that the points are a good bet on this one. And that is all the time we have for you in this one. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We are coming back to you on Monday with a couple more videos for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.